Operation Epic Fury. Shots fired, literally. President Donald Trump just made it clear if Iran fails to make a deal by Wednesday, the ceasefire may be over. The blockade stays and American bombs could start falling again. Then right on cue, the U.S. Navy and Marines prove this White House isn't bluffing. An Iranian-flagged cargo ship tried to test Trump's blockade, ignored repeated warnings for 6 straight hours and got stopped cold by American firepower before Marines rappelled in and seized the vessel. This is not weakness. This is not endless talking. This is America First muscle, and what happened next sent an unmistakable message to Tehran. So why should you care? Because when Iran threatens shipping, energy, and trade, it hits your wallet, your retirement, your job, and the cost of nearly everything delivered across the globe. President Trump's doing what the globalist crowd refused to do for years, restoring deterrence. Now, CENTCOM says since this blockade began, U.S. forces have already directed 27 vessels to turn around or head back to Iranian ports. That means the Trump administration is controlling the pressure point, not the mullahs, not the IRGC, and not the weak-kneed bureaucrats who always told Americans to accept chaos as normal. And politically, this is enormous. See, the message is simple. Under President Trump, American warnings are not suggestions. The former Biden administration spent years signaling hesitation and feeding instability. Now Tehran is learning the hard way that this president backs up his words with steel, sanctions, and force. Communities at home, they benefit when hostile regimes lose leverage, when shipping lanes are protected, and when America stops subsidizing danger through weakness. And that brings us to another national security front where President Trump is moving fast. I'm talking about America's mineral independence. This breaking news from the White House. They just announced over $30 billion to secure America's critical mineral supply chains and named a specific Alaskan project as a key strategic asset for U.S. mineral independence. I've been to the Vizsla copper drilling site myself, the one in Canada. I've seen it with my own eyes. And what's happening right now is bigger than most people realize. President Trump just unveiled Project Vault, a $12 billion strategic minerals reserve designed to stockpile essential resources and keep America strong when global supply lines get threatened. And that is why investors are watching Vizsla copper so closely. Trading in the United States under VCUFF and in Canada as VCU.V. It's right there on your screen. It's about copper. It's about security and American strength. Check the exclusive briefing and see why this story matters. It's only for Next News viewers right now, for smart, patriotic investors. Because whether it's sea lanes or supply chains, President Trump is proving strength wins. Now here is the twist the media don't want you to admit. See, this is not some random maritime incident. This was a direct test of Trump's credibility, and Iran failed. CENTCOM says the Marines boarded the MV Tuska on April 19th after the USS Spruance disabled its propulsion when the crew ignored repeated warnings. In plain English, they were told to stop, they refused, and our military shut them down. That's what real deterrence looks like when America has a commander-in-chief who means business. Let's go to the president here warning about the ceasefire.
You don't have a deal by Wednesday when the ceasefire ends. Will you extend the ceasefire or will you start attacks again?
Maybe I won't extend it.
Okay.
But the blockade is going to remain. But maybe I won't extend it. So you have a blockade, and unfortunately we'll have to start dropping bombs again.
Start dropping bombs again. President Trump signals tough stance with the blockade. Now this from U.S. CENTCOM. Since the commencement of the blockade against ships entering or exiting Iranian ports, U.S. forces have directed 27 vessels to turn around or return. Here's some video.
This is United States Warship 115. You are entering the area of a military blockade. This blockade of Iranian ports will be enforced and applies to all vessels regardless of flag. Any vessel that further intends to enter or exit an Iranian port will be subject to the right of visit and search in accordance with international law. If you attempt to run the blockade, we will compel compliance with force. Over.
They're not messing around. Here's more from CENTCOM. U.S. Marines depart the amphibious assault ship USS Tripoli by helicopter, transit over the Arabian Sea to board and seize the MV Tuska. The Marines rappelled onto the Iranian-flagged vessel April 19th after the guided missile destroyer USS Spruance disabled Tuska's propulsion when the commercial ship failed to comply with repeated warnings from the U.S. forces over a 6-hour period. Here's video that was just posted. Yeah, maybe they should have listened. Maybe they should have listened, and now, wow. Night vision full effect. There you have the rappel, the action. President Trump not messing around. With the U.S. military demonstrating its might on the seas, Kevin Hassett turns her attention back home, where economic repercussions of Iranian actions are met head-on by Trump's policies. Listen.
We've had 2 earnings seasons in a row where basically everything's surprising on the upside. That's happening because the golden age that President Trump promised is starting to be very visible in the profit data, but also more importantly in the wage data. If you're a person who has a job where you're making tips, or you're making overtime, or you're a retiree who thought that Social Security wasn't what you expected and you need to make some more money, all of you got huge tax breaks in the $4,000 to $7,000 range because of the big, beautiful bill. And so I think that with strong domestic economy, then the question is there something about the foreign relations that could upset that? And first, the U.S. economy is the engine of global growth. And so a strong U.S. economy is a super positive, despite what's going on in the Gulf. But also, once this is resolved, think about how much energy production in the Gulf area has been depressed over time because of the huge risk premium associated with Iranian misbehavior. And so once this thing is done, think about the explosion in new energy production that can happen in the Middle East, driving prices way, way down over time, including in the U.S. The final thing I could say is that if you look at the ship traffic data, it's kind of like every empty vessel on Earth is headed towards the U.S. to fill up with oil right now. So the U.S. is the biggest oil producer on Earth, and the capacity that we have to meet the demand of people who are stuck in that picture that you're showing, I think is a positive surprise for markets.
A positive surprise. As a seizure of the Tuska reveals Trump's hardline tactics, Hassett outlines how strong U.S. economy is poised to capitalize in the Middle East. President Trump making this post on Truth Social today. An Iranian-flagged cargo ship named Tuska, nearly 900 feet long, weighing almost as much as an aircraft carrier, tried to get past our naval blockade, and it did not go well for them. U.S. Navy guided missile destroyer USS Spruance intercepted the Tuska in the Gulf of Oman, gave them fair warning to stop. The Iranian crew refused to listen, so our Navy stopped them right in their tracks by blowing a hole in the engine room. Right now, U.S. Marines have custody of the vessel. The Tuska is under U.S. Treasury sanctions because of their prior history of illegal activity. Sounds like a dark fleet vessel to me. He continues, we have full custody of the ship and are seeing what's on board. President Donald J. Trump. Now, here is the U.S. Ambassador Mike Waltz to the United Nations.
Well, the Iranian command and control and government is in absolute disarray because of the devastating attacks across its leadership. You're right. You heard the Iranian foreign minister say it's open, and then the IRGC step in and say, no, it's closed. Regardless, it's the blockade, the U.S. Navy, and President Trump who's ultimately deciding what gets in and out. So he has completely turned the tables on Iran's attempt to hold the entire world's economies hostage, on its attempt to punish the world as a result of this dispute over its nuclear program. But to your point, I promise you, I assure you, the United States doesn't trust anything. Any agreement that comes out will have to be verifiable and enforceable. And back to my position here in the United Nations, the International Atomic Energy Agency, the IAEA, and its nuclear inspectors, I'm confident will be a key part of whatever's resolved.
And we'll have to wait and see. We've heard of those types of inspections in the past, haven't we? Now, here's the big reveal. See, the blockade's not just blocking ships. It's breaking Iran's grip. Trump's own UN ambassador says the IRGC is in absolute disarray after devastating attacks on its leadership, and that President Trump is now the one deciding what gets in and out. So let that sink in for a moment. Tehran wanted the world economy hostage. Trump flipped the board, and then the president put an exclamation point on it, saying the sanctioned Tuska tried to run the blockade, got its engine room blasted, and is now in U.S. custody while officials inspect the cargo. They messed around and found out. This is what happens when a rogue regime confuses American patience with American weakness. Weakness, not weakness. And that's the takeaway. Peace through strength is not a slogan, it's a policy, and it works. President Trump gave Iran a deadline and forced a blockade, and when an Iranian-flagged vessel pushed its luck, the United States Navy and Marines answered with action, not empty press releases. Hassett says once this is resolved, energy production in the Gulf could surge because the risk premium that's tied to Iranian bad behavior gets crushed. That means stronger markets, more stability, and a safer world with America back in command. If you're tired of weak leadership and proud to see the stars and stripes respected again, share this report right now. And comment below, yes or no, do you support President Trump keeping the blockade in place until Iran folds? Subscribe, tap the bell, and text raw feed to 844-840-4963 so YouTube can't bury us. And check out the Next News merch shelf below this video. America's back, and our enemies are finally getting the message.
The system controls information. Information control is power.
They don't want you to see this.
The truth only survives together. They don't want this shared. Share this now.